Hello learners, now in this episode I'm going to discuss about another important skill for communication, that is listening. So understanding the value of listening is our concern in these slides. Let's see what we have. So if speaking is silver, then listening is gold. A Turkish proverb. So the principle of listening, someone has said, is to develop a big ear rather than a big mouth. Howard G. Hendricks. So we can easily understand that speaking and listening, between these two, listening is more significant. But why? Because if we cannot listen anything, we cannot speak. So when we can listen something, if we listen to some other people's words or some other person's talks, then we can speak. But if we cannot listen, we don't have any scope to speak. For that reason, here it is shown that listening is gold. Listening is more important. Though speaking is simultaneously important, but it's just a proverb. So what is listening? Listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. So, point to be noted that listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. So, we'll have a difference between listening and hearing. What is hearing and listening? So, let's see what is the difference. Listening differs from hearing. Hearing refers to the sounds that we hear. It is a physiological response that we receive a sound. And the functions of listening is a 4 steps process of hearing, that means the receiving the sounds, and interpreting, making sense what we have received or what we have heard, evaluating, judging, and responding, clarifying to the speaker. So hearing is the first process of listening. Listening is a 4 steps process, and hearing is the first step of those 4 steps. So I believe you have understood. So hearing, any sound we can hear, but listening, we must understand and realize what we have heard. Okay, so let's see. And there are different types of listening. According to British Council, there are 5 major types of listening. The first one is discriminative listening. Is first developed at a very early age, perhaps even before birth in the womb. So discriminative listening is developed in the womb, even before birth. So in this connection, we can bring an example of Three Idiots movie, where we find Mr. Amir Khan says, "All is well," and the baby kicked inside the womb. Okay, so that means discriminative listening. Na? Okay, so this is the most basic form of listening and does not involve the understanding of the meaning of words or phrases. Okay, so at this stage, the words and phrases are not understandable. Now, this type is comprehensive listening. Comprehensive listening involves understanding the message or messages that are communicated. So comprehensive listening, so here we're watching a picture and these people are listening to that person, and this type of listening is comprehensive listening because they all understand one another's views and points. Okay, this is comprehensive listening, where understanding the message or messages that are communicated, and it involves the messages that are communicated. This is critical listening. You see, everyone is serious. Each and every one is serious while listening. So it is critical listening. And critical listening is where listeners have to evaluate the message and critically respond to the message and give their opinion. Okay? Listeners first critically respond to the message and give their opinion afterward. Now we have therapeutic listening. Therapeutic listening is important in building good interpersonal relations. Okay, therapeutic listening, it is important in building good interpersonal relations. Here, listener's role is to be a sympathetic listener without much verbal response. Listener's role is to be a sympathetic listener without much verbal response. And it is also known as empathetic listening. And we have a picture here, therapeutic listening. So these two persons are listeners and they are listening to this person but with less words. Now appreciative listening. It is a type of listening where the focus is on enjoying what one listens. So, and where the focus, we must understand this term, where the focus is on enjoying what one listens. That is appreciative listening. And in this type of listening, the speakers and listeners should appreciate each other. Effective listening. Effective listening means that communication is heard completely and effectively interpreted into meaningful messages. That means what we have listened, we can understand clearly and perfectly. That is effective listening. So there are some prerequisites of effective listening. So to understand the speaker's talks or speaker's words, we must have some steps or measures to make our listening effective. For example, the first one, face the speaker. If the speaker speaks and we don't face to that person, if we can't or don't face to the speaker, we cannot understand his all words. And maintaining eye contact is also important. Then minimize internal or external distractions. For example, someone is speaking, but to whom he or she is speaking is reading a newspaper or is watching TV. So these type of things are external distractions. Or sometimes we may be in a very somber mood. So in that case, if someone speaks to us, at that time, this somber mood function as internal distractions. Okay, then respond appropriately. So to be a good listener, one should respond appropriately. For example, if someone speaks, we should say or we should respond with these words like murmur, aha, and nod, moving head. Then raise your eyebrows. Oh, okay, all right. And while using these three sounds like oh, okay, all right, we raise our eyebrows. Say words such as really, interesting. So when the speaker speaks, we should say some words like really, interesting to encourage speakers to speak. Okay? More direct prompts. What did you do then? And what did she say? What did you do then? Okay, these are some sentences that can be also used to respond to the speaker. Keep an open mind. So one must have an open mind to have all the words from the speakers. Okay? Wait until the speaker is finished and we should let the speaker finish his or her words. Before deciding that you disagree, focus solely what the speaker is saying. So if any speaker speaks and in the middle of the point, we should not say that we disagree with you or we agree with you. First, we should let him or her finish his words or his speech. Then we need to give our opinions while we are agreed or disagreed with him or her. Then number 5, pay attention to non-verbal clues. So sometimes the body language matters, sometimes the facial expression matters. So non-verbal clues are important. When the speaker speaks, the listener should also observe or watch the non-verbal clues of the speaker. And these clues, these non-verbal clues, we can't ignore. And when listening, remember that words convey only a fraction of the message. So words convey only a fraction of the message. So words convey the message perfectly when these words combine with the facial expressions or with the body language. Okay? And for that reason, the listener should pay attention to non-verbal clues of the speakers. Look at the picture. A very effective listening, a very nice meeting is going on with effective listening. Okay? So everyone is listening to the person in the middle, and everyone is lively, everyone is enthusiastic, energetic, and is smiley also, and also serious. And this type of listening is effective listening. But there are some barriers of listening. We have already talked about some barriers: distractions, prejudice, interruption, linguistic barrier, and perceptual barrier. So distractions, there may be 4 types of distractions: physical, mental, auditory, and visual. Okay? And then if anyone is prejudiced, then the speaker's race, religion, age, or appearance may be taken for granted by some people, and at that time listening cannot be perfect. So after that we have interruption. Interrupting a conversation with improper body language or inappropriate words has a negative impact in effective listening. So we should not interrupt in any conversation. First we should listen, then we should let the persons finish their words or their speech, then we should talk. Now, it's a very important one, linguistic barriers. Sometimes we don't understand the words of other cultures, of other areas, of other countries. So in that case, what should we do? For example, you see, linguistic barriers are found when a speaker says something unclear, uses jargon or complex words, and shows hesitant manner or delivers the words too fast, too slow, too loud, or too quiet. For example, in our country, the real Chittagong language, the real native language of Chittagong is really very tough to understand. And also there are some other languages, their dialect are really critical to understand, complex to understand. So in that case, avoid misinterpretations by asking the speaker what he meant, and wait for the speaker to pause to ask clarifying questions. So in that case, the listener should wait for the speakers to pause to ask to clarify the questions. Okay? First, the speakers should be let to finish by the listeners. The listeners should wait till the speakers finish their talks. Then perceptual barriers. Sometimes we have some of the persons may have cultural or social background differences, and in that case some perceptual barriers also provide obstacles to have better listening. Okay, but an open and bubbly person don't feel discomfort with anybody. So we should be frank We should be open, we should be bubbly, and we should be lively, and we should not consider any race or any types of discrimination in communication. So only then we can have effective communication. So to sum up, we can say that listening properly is an essential part of effective communication. Effective listening skill fuels our social, emotional, and professional success. So we should develop this skill by mindfully overcoming its barriers. So thank you very much. Every good conversation starts with good listening. So long.